10 years ago, I had this list in my head. I never dreamt that I'd get to the end of that list. So I've decided to end my river monsters journey.
For nearly a decade, Jeremy Wade captivated millions with tales of monstrous fish lurking in the world's most remote rivers. But behind the thrilling hunts and daring escapes, a different story, marked by unseen struggles, dangerous secrets, and difficult decisions, was unfolding. What led to the sudden end of a global phenomenon? What pressures built up beneath the surface, forcing the man himself to step back? After years of silence, Wade is finally speaking out, and what he reveals challenges everything we thought we knew about the show. Jeremy Wade's path to creating River Monsters began long before television cameras entered the picture. For nearly 20 years, he worked as a biology teacher and traveled extensively, often venturing into remote areas with little modern infrastructure. During these journeys, he spoke with fishermen, villagers, and local guides, recording their accounts of unusual incidents involving freshwater creatures. Some described giant fish capable of swallowing dogs. Others spoke of people dragged under by unseen forces, and many recounted unexplained injuries or disappearances linked to rivers and lakes. Wade's careful documentation of these stories gradually built a global collection of freshwater legends. In 2007, his travels were abruptly interrupted when he contracted a severe case of malaria during an expedition. The illness was life-threatening and recovery was slow. It was during this period of enforced rest that he began developing the framework for a television series. His vision was to merge three key elements: detailed detective-style investigation, extreme angling in challenging and often dangerous environments, and the authentic voices of the people who lived alongside these waters. His aim was to solve real-life mysteries, not by exaggerating them for entertainment, but by approaching them as factual cases to be verified or disproven. On April 5, 2009, River Monsters premiered on Animal Planet. The debut episodes were filmed largely in the Amazon basin, where Wade investigated two legendary fish, the peregrine catfish and the arapaima. These species, central to local folklore and often blamed for attacks or deaths, became the perfect test for his format. The show followed Wade as he interviewed witnesses, gathered physical evidence, and attempted to locate and capture the fish to understand its true nature. This unique combination of adventure, science, and cultural storytelling made the program stand out from other fishing or wildlife shows. The audience response was immediate and strong. By the end of its first season, River Monsters had become Animal Planet's highest-rated series, averaging more than 1.3 million viewers per episode in the United States. Viewers were drawn not only to the suspense of each investigation, but also to Wade's calm, methodical approach. He avoided sensationalism, focusing instead on accuracy and respect for both the animals and the communities featured. Scientists and conservationists appreciated that the program presented biological facts clearly, while general audiences enjoyed the sense of mystery and discovery. The show's second season expanded its reach dramatically. Filming locations ranged from the turbulent waters of the Congo River in Central Africa to the icy foothills of the Himalayas in South Asia. Each location brought new species, cultural perspectives, and challenges for the crew. By moving quickly into international waters, the series established itself as a truly global production with stories that could come from almost anywhere on Earth. But even during this wave of success, Wade was privately noting troubling patterns in his fieldwork, changes in rivers, species availability, and local conditions. These observations, carefully recorded in his personal journals, would remain undisclosed for years. While this global momentum gave River Monsters its unique appeal, it also set in motion challenges that would prove far more difficult to overcome. By 2011, River Monsters had already built a devoted global following, and its third season continued to broaden the scope. That year, Jeremy Wade and his crew filmed in extreme and unpredictable environments, including expeditions to Alaska and the Mekong River in Southeast Asia. These were not just dramatic backdrops. They introduced environmental and logistical challenges that raised the stakes for each investigation. One of the season's most memorable targets was a giant freshwater stingray, Himentura caefreya, native to the Mekong. This elusive species can exceed 15 feet in length and weigh several hundred kilograms. Capturing it on camera required days of waiting in punishing heat, working closely with local fishermen, and managing safety in strong river currents. The stingray episode became a standout, combining scientific inquiry with high physical risk. In subsequent years, production entered even more difficult terrain. In 2012, the crew filmed in Guyana, a destination known for its remote rainforest rivers. Each season demanded greater effort, pushing Wade and his team deeper into uncharted waters, while the strain of balancing entertainment, science, and personal safety quietly began to build beneath the surface. Traveling to film new episodes often required navigating dense jungle, sometimes taking days just to reach fishing sites. The conditions were punishing, with equipment hauled by dugout canoes, weather delays disrupting schedules, and communication difficulties isolating the team. Crew interviews later revealed that the logistical pressure was far greater than most viewers ever realized. As the hunts expanded, Wade began returning to earlier locations, but with new objectives. These weren't simple reruns. Each return meant exploring deeper river systems, pursuing different species, or tackling long-standing mysteries left unresolved. This evolution reflected a practical reality. The number of large, mysterious freshwater species that could be ethically and safely pursued was finite, and every new story required a more creative approach. The production process also became more demanding with each season. What once took a few weeks to film could now stretch into 2 months or more per episode. Tight schedules, harsh terrain, and unpredictable wildlife behavior left no guarantee of success, while the pressure to deliver compelling results only grew. Behind the scenes, the toll was mounting. Constant travel, exposure to extreme weather, and long filming days left little time for recovery. According to interviews, the pace was becoming unsustainable, and by season 7 in 2015, some longtime crew members stepped away from the show entirely. Wade himself began to feel the strain of sustaining such a high standard, with the physical and emotional weight becoming harder to ignore. While audiences continued to marvel at the discoveries, River Monsters was shifting behind the scenes, evolving from a bold expedition series into a grueling, high-risk operation that pushed its team to the limit. By 2013, the show had earned its reputation for venturing into some of the most remote and dangerous waters on Earth. But behind the dramatic footage of monster-sized fish was a grueling reality for Wade and his crew. The risks weren't just for the camera. Wade himself faced several near-death experiences during filming. One of the most serious came while shooting in the Congo, where he contracted a life-threatening case of malaria. "It's something that kills people every day," he later recalled. "I very nearly joined them." In another terrifying moment, while wrestling an arapaima in the Amazon, Wade took a brutal blow to the chest. "That fish basically hit me like a hose," he said. "I could still feel it 6 weeks later." Despite his years of experience, the physical toll of filming was beginning to show. The dangers weren't limited to Wade either. During one shoot, a member of the sound crew was struck by lightning, suffering burns to his legs and leaving the entire team shaken. Wade described it as one of the show's most sobering moments. "That was one of the closest calls we ever had. It reminded us that we weren't invincible." He also recounted a near-fatal encounter with an electric eel, where a 500-volt shock underwater nearly left him paralyzed and at risk of drowning. The physical dangers were matched by growing emotional strain. Long filming days often stretched to 14 hours, spent in sweltering jungles, monsoon rains, or freezing riverbanks. Meals were irregular. Sleep came in short, broken intervals, and constant international flights left little chance to recover before the next high-risk expedition. By this point, Wade was in his early 60s, and even he began to feel the limits of endurance creeping in. Crew members, too, quietly began stepping away. Several long-standing professionals left after season 7, with sources suggesting burnout was a major factor. Each departure meant the loss of experience, piling more pressure on those who remained. None of this was visible to viewers. On screen, episodes still featured crisp narration, stunning visuals, and thrilling climaxes. But what was left out, the injuries, the fatigue, the lightning strikes, and the creeping exhaustion, told a very different story. Wade later admitted, "You don't realize how much these things are affecting you until you stop. And by then, something's already changed." The river is still cold to him, but behind the camera, the mood had shifted. There were fewer jokes, more silences, and a growing sense that the show was taking more than it gave. Many of these catches were among the largest ever recorded, from giant catfish to massive stingrays. The program's formula, traveling to remote locations, chasing local legends, and confirming or debunking them with scientific evidence, have been applied to nearly every major river system on Earth. As the series progressed into its later seasons, the search for new subject became increasingly challenging. The most famous rivers had already yielded their biggest secrets, so to find fresh stories, Wade and the crew had to push deeper into smaller, lesser-known waterways. These rivers were often far from established infrastructure, requiring more days of travel, greater logistical coordination, and significantly higher costs. In many cases, reaching these remote locations introduced greater safety risks, from unpredictable rapids to limited access to medical care. Wade himself was aware of the growing challenge to maintain the integrity of the show. In one interview, he explained, "The danger is in repeating ourselves. If we start inventing danger, we'll lose the truth the show was built on." This reflected his long-standing commitment to accuracy. The power of river monsters had always come from presenting real dangers in genuine species, not staged drama or fabricated threats. Yet, the pool of unique, high-stakes freshwater mysteries was undeniably shrinking. Fans also began to notice patterns, picking up on episodes that revisited previously featured species. While these often explored new aspects of the animal or different angles of the story, the recurrence of familiar species led to speculation in online forums that the show had reached its natural endpoint. Some wondered if there were simply no monsters left. But the real reason, as it would later turn out, was more complex. From a production standpoint, these repeat visits were not about running out of ideas, but about pushing deeper into known stories to uncover hidden details. Still, the shift in perception among fans created pressure. Audiences who had been thrilled by the constant novelty of earlier seasons now expected each new episode to top the last in terms of scale, risk, or discovery, an expectation that was becoming harder to meet without compromising authenticity. While viewers speculated that the show was suffering from creative exhaustion, there were other, far more personal factors influencing Wade's decisions, which he chose not to discuss publicly at the time and would only reveal years later. By late 2016, another challenge emerged, a network shift at Animal Planet. Discovery Communications, the network's parent company, began rebranding its programming toward a softer, more family-friendly tone. Shows featuring pets, veterinarians, and light wildlife storytelling were prioritized, aiming to attract a broader audience with accessible, positive content that was stylistically consistent across the network. For River Monsters, this posed a problem. Wade's series was built on real-world expeditions, dangerous field conditions, and remote, unpredictable locations. Each episode required long-distance travel, weather contingencies, complex permits, and a large crew. According to media sources and production insiders, some episodes cost over $500,000 to produce, making River Monsters one of the most expensive shows on Animal Planet at the time. Network executives began scrutinizing high-cost field productions more critically. Though still a top performer, the show's model no longer aligned with the emerging brand vision. Compared to studio-based programs or controlled environment productions, River Monsters seemed unpredictable, costly, and logistically difficult. This wasn't unique to Animal Planet. Across the industry, networks were cutting back on adventure documentaries, as weather delays, injuries, medical emergencies, and international travel made such productions harder to budget and schedule. As networks pursued consistency and efficiency, shows like River Monsters became harder to justify, even when successful. Behind the scenes, these shifts were felt. Wade and his team reportedly face increasing pushback on future plans. Proposals once approved quickly now met with budget restrictions or were reshaped to fit new guidelines. Some crew members noticed a change in tone during internal meetings. The excitement that once fueled expeditions was being replaced by cautious calculations. Publicly, Wade kept a professional tone. When the series end was announced in 2017, he described it as the right time to conclude. But in later interviews, he hinted there were deeper reasons beyond the creative arc, ones he had chosen not to share at the time. The final season of River Monsters premiered on April 23, 2017, quietly marking the beginning of the show's farewell. There was no grand marketing push or official send-off. Viewers were led to believe it was business as usual. Yet, as the episodes aired, longtime fans sensed a change. The mystery and suspense were still there, but there was a subtle shift in tone, more introspective and final. The season began with Killers from the Abyss and concluded with Malaysian Lake Monster on May 28, 2017. Behind the scenes, however, the production team had already accepted that this would be the show's last chapter. For many, it marked the end of an extraordinary journey across some of the world's most remote and treacherous waters. Jeremy Wade's public statement at the time gave a simple explanation. Some shows can run forever, but our subject matter is finite. 10 years ago, I had a list in my head, but everything has now been ticked off and then some. It was an elegant answer that made sense. After covering nearly every large and mysterious freshwater species on the planet, the series had seemingly run its natural course. Still, fans felt a deep sense of loss. Social media filled with farewell messages and tributes from viewers who credited the show with inspiring their love of nature, biology, and exploration. To them, River Monsters was more than entertainment. It was a ritual, an adventure they eagerly awaited each season. What the public didn't realize at the time was that Wade had kept other, more complex reasons private until years later. In a candid discussion, he admitted that while the pool of undiscovered giant fish was indeed dwindling, the deeper truth was more troubling. Some of the rivers he once visited could no longer support the creatures that had once thrived there. In just a few years, habitats once teeming with life had been devastated by pollution, overfishing, and dam construction. He recalled one sobering moment when he revisited a location from an early season only to find the river murky, lifeless, and stripped of the monster species that once defined it. This wasn't merely a filming obstacle. It was a reflection of a larger environmental collapse. There were also safety concerns that the public never knew about. While danger had always been part of the show, Wade revealed that the crew had faced several near-miss incidents in politically unstable regions. These range from being caught in sudden local conflicts to narrowly avoiding accidents in hazardous terrain. Insurers eventually raised concerns, warning that future seasons might require restrictions so severe they would undermine the show's adventurous style. Ethical concerns weighed heavily on Wade as well. Over time, he began questioning whether showcasing rare or vulnerable species to a global audience might unintentionally do harm. He worried that publicity could encourage illegal fishing or poaching, placing already endangered animals at greater risk. At the same time, he felt conflicted about the show's framing. River Monsters portrayed rivers as thrilling frontos, but it rarely addressed their ongoing decline. Wade feared that by glamorizing these waters, the series risked misleading viewers about the harsh realities facing freshwater ecosystems. Ending the show when he did, he later admitted, was partly a way to avoid sending that incomplete message. In the end, what appeared to be a clean, ratings-driven conclusion was actually shaped by environmental grief, safety concerns, and ethical responsibility. Once Wade revealed this, it shifted the way fans understood River Monsters. Its legacy was not only in thrilling encounters with giant fish, but in raising awareness about the fragility of the waters they called home. Afterward, Wade channeled his efforts into a new mission. In 2018, he returned with Mighty Rivers, a documentary series investigating the health of some of the world's most vital waterways, shifting the focus from catching monsters to saving them. Rather than focusing on mysterious creatures, the series explored the impact of human activities such as pollution, overfishing, and damming on river ecosystems. Each episode centered on a specific river, including the Ganges, Amazon, Mississippi, Yangtze, Danube, and Zambezi. Mighty Rivers marked a clear shift in Wade's focus, with a tone that was more urgent, less about the hunt and more about the consequences. Wade took on the role of an investigator rather than a fisherman, using science and field interviews to uncover why certain fish populations were disappearing and how environmental degradation was spreading unnoticed. The show maintained his signature style, but the questions were bigger. It was no longer just about which creature might be lurking underwater. It was about whether the river itself could survive. In 2019, Wade followed up with Dark Waters, a series that continued his exploration of aquatic mysteries, this time emphasizing little understood or overlooked threats. The show covered topics ranging from invasive species to sudden ecological collapses. While Wade didn't dramatically reinvent his style, his priorities had clearly shifted. He was no longer asking, what monster could be hiding here? But rather, what's happening to this river, and why aren't we paying attention? Although he never directly announced a transition into activism, Mighty Rivers and Dark Waters allowed Wade to speak on behalf of ecosystems rather than just species. Even though he always maintained a sense of scientific caution, fans noticed the emotional weight in these later series. There was a sense that the monsters he had once pursued were no longer the biggest threats. In their place stood industrial pollution, collapsing food chains, and shrinking habitats, forces more complex and more dangerous than any single creature. While River Monsters sparked global curiosity, Wade's post-series work shifted the spotlight onto the health of the waters themselves. It was less sensational, but in many ways far more important. And through it all, Wade remained the same calm, curious presence. Only now, the stakes had changed. So, what do you think about the real reason behind why River Monsters ended? Did you enjoy the series? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.